that bag before I drop you!
Sir, I paid.
Paid?
He spat near her shoes.
You smell like the bus station and you're touching a Valentino?
Here's my receipt.
He smacked it out of her hand.
Probably printed that in the shelter.
Please, just call the store.
I don't take orders from people like you.
He grabbed her arm, twisted it back.
You disgusting, thieving roach!
The cuff snapped shut. Her knees hit the pavement. A mother in the crowd covered her child's eyes. She didn't scream. She knelt on that concrete, looked up at him, and smiled. And that smile, that quiet, patient, unbothered smile, was the last thing Officer Derek Holloway ever saw before his entire career came apart. Olivia Spencer had spent 15 years earning every scar, every commendation, and every sleepless night the badge could offer. She started as a patrol officer in Decatur, Georgia. 12-hour shifts, broken radios, body armor that never fit right. She worked narcotics in her late 20s, took a bullet graze during a raid that left a thin white line across her left shoulder. By 32, she was the youngest black woman to make lieutenant in the county's history. By 35, she ran the entire Criminal Investigations Division. 3 weeks ago, the governor called her personally. Macon County needs a new sheriff, he said. Someone who can't be bought, bullied, or broken. Your name came up 7 times. She accepted the next morning. The appointment made state news. First black woman to hold the office in Macon County's 140-year history. The ceremony was set for Monday. Her badge, her nameplate, her office, all waiting. But today was Saturday, her last free day before everything changed. She woke early, drove 40 minutes to the small town of Ridgewood, population 9,000. A place where magnolia trees lined the main street and shop owners still hung American flags from their awnings. She parked her silver Honda Civic on Elm Avenue. No police cruiser, no uniform, no escort. Just a woman in a linen blouse and jeans, sunglasses pushed up on her forehead. She spotted the boutique from across the street. Harlow and James. White brick, gold lettering, a single mannequin in the window wearing a dress that cost more than most people's rent. The kind of store that smelled like cedar and judgment. She pushed the door open. A small brass bell chimed. Inside, the air was cool and sharp with lavender diffuser. Racks of silk blouses hung in color-blocked rows. Glass shelves displayed handbags behind soft lighting. Prada, Valentino, Givenchy. A jazz piano track played low through hidden speakers. Karen Whitfield stood behind the register, arranging a display of cashmere scarves. 44 years old, highlighted blonde hair, French-tipped nails. She had worked at Harlow and James for 6 years and believed with absolute certainty that she could tell who belonged in this store within 3 seconds of the door opening. She looked up, saw Olivia, and her mouth tightened. Olivia browsed for 20 minutes. She touched a few fabrics, checked a few price tags. Karen didn't greet her, didn't offer help, didn't ask if she needed a fitting room. She just watched, arms folded, jaw set, eyes tracking Olivia's hands like a surveillance camera. Olivia stopped in front of a red Valentino Garavani bag. Calfskin leather, gold clasp, $2,800. She picked it up, turned it over, ran her thumb across the stitching. "I'll take this one," she said. Karen blinked. "That one?" "Yes, ma'am." Karen rang it up slowly, as if expecting the card to decline. It didn't. The transaction cleared in 4 seconds. Karen placed the bag in a dust cover, slid it into a branded shopping bag, and handed over the receipt without a word. Olivia thanked her and walked toward the door. Before the bell finished chiming, Karen had her phone out. She dialed a number she kept saved under Derek, PD. "There's a black woman leaving my store with a $2,800 bag," Karen whispered, cupping the phone. I don't know how she got it. Something's off. Can you come check? 3 blocks away, Officer Derek Holloway sat in his cruiser outside a gas station, finishing a breakfast burrito. 12 years on the force. 14 formal complaints. Racial profiling, excessive force, unlawful detention. Every single one dismissed. His union rep called him thorough. His captain called him aggressive but effective. The citizens of Ridgewood's black neighborhood called him something else entirely. He wiped his hands on his pants, hit the lights, and pulled out. Karen's call wasn't a 911 emergency. It wasn't a dispatch. It was a personal favor between two people who had decided long before today that certain faces didn't belong in certain places. Holloway's cruiser rolled down Elm Avenue. He spotted Olivia stepping off the curb, shopping bag in hand, receipt folded neatly in her pocket. He didn't run her plates, didn't call dispatch, didn't check with the store. He just pulled up, blocked her path, and stepped out. Holloway's cruiser door swung open before the engine was off. He left the lights running, red and blue cycling across the storefronts, the sidewalk, the face of every person turning to look. He was 6'2", 230, with a crew cut and a jawline built for confrontation. His sunglasses sat on top of his head. He didn't need them. He wanted her to see his eyes. "Stop right there." Olivia paused mid-step. She turned slowly, shopping bag in her left hand, keys in her right. "Are you talking to me? Do you see anyone else walking out of that store with merchandise they can't afford?" She stood still. The afternoon sun hit her face. She didn't raise her voice. "I paid for everything in this bag. I have the receipt." "Sure you do." He walked toward her, boots heavy on the asphalt. "Let me see it." She reached into her pocket and held the receipt out, arm extended, paper flat, not a tremble in her fingers. He took it, glanced at it for half a second, then crumpled it and tossed it onto the curb. "That doesn't prove anything." "It's a store receipt with today's date, the item description, and the last 4 digits of my card." "Could be anyone's card." "It's mine." "Prove it." "I just did." His neck flushed red. He wasn't used to being calm. He was used to fear, flinching, stammering, hands up, please don't shoot body language. This woman gave him nothing, and that made him furious. He keyed his shoulder radio. "This is Holloway, Unit 19. I've got a possible 459 outside Harlow and James on Elm. Black female, mid-30s, in possession of suspected stolen merchandise. Requesting backup." Olivia's jaw tightened, but she didn't move. "A 459, she said quietly. "You're calling in a burglary code for a shopping bag?" "I'm calling in what I see. What you see is a woman holding a receipt." "What I see," he said, stepping closer until she could smell the hot sauce on his breath, "is someone who doesn't belong on this block, carrying something she didn't earn, and giving me attitude about it." A couple walking their dog stopped on the opposite sidewalk. The woman pulled her husband's arm. "Should we do something?" she whispered. He shook his head. "Don't get involved." A teenager on a skateboard slowed down, pulled out his phone, and started recording. "Tyler Brooks, 17, junior at Ridgewood High, 300 followers on his livestream channel. In 20 minutes, he would have 300,000. Holloway pointed at Olivia's shopping bag. "Put it down." "No, put it down. This is my property. I bought it. I'm not putting it down." He unclipped his holster strap, not drawing, just unclipping. A gesture, a message. The leather snap was loud enough to make the couple across the street step backward. "Last chance," he said. Olivia looked at the holster, looked at his hand, looked at his eyes. She set the bag down slowly, deliberately, and placed both hands at her sides. "There," she said. "Now call the store and verify the purchase." He didn't call the store. Instead, he pulled a pair of latex gloves from his belt, the kind used for searches, and snapped them on, one finger at a time, staring at her the entire time. "Turn around. You don't have probable cause for a search. I have a report of stolen merchandise and a suspect who's being uncooperative. That's all I need." "That's not how the law works." "I am the law on this street." He grabbed her shoulder and spun her around, hands on the hood, her palms pressed flat against the warm metal of his cruiser. The heat stung. She could feel the engine vibrating under her fingers, the grit of dust on the paint. He patted her down, slowly, thoroughly, far beyond what any training manual would justify. He checked her pockets, her waistband, the collar of her blouse. His hands lingered in places they had no legal right to be. The crowd had grown. 8 people now, then 12. A man in a barber's apron stepped out of the shop next door, arms folded. A woman pushing a stroller stopped and stared, mouth open. Tyler's phone never wavered. "She didn't do anything," a voice called from the crowd. Holloway didn't turn around. "Anyone who interferes with a police investigation will be arrested." Silence. A second cruiser pulled up. Officer Travis Kemp stepped out. Younger, leaner, 5 years on the force. He surveyed the scene. A woman pressed against a hood, a crumpled receipt on the curb, a crowd of phones. His stomach sank. "What do we have?" Kemp asked, keeping his voice low. "Shoplifter, Harlow and James. Caught her walking out with a $2,800 bag." Kemp looked at the shopping bag on the sidewalk. Branded. Tissue paper is still poking from the top. He looked at the crumpled receipt in the gutter. "Did you verify with the store?" "The store called me." "But did you verify the purchase?" Holloway turned slowly. His eyes narrowed. "Are you questioning my stop, rookie?" Kemp held his gaze for 1 second, then looked away. "No, sir." "Then secure the perimeter and keep these people back." Kemp walked toward the crowd, but his hands were shaking. He had seen Holloway operate before. The planted questions, the invented probable cause, the way a routine encounter always escalated into something that ended with someone on the ground. He had filed a concern once, early in his career. His sergeant told him to mind his own calls. He never filed again. Holloway reached into the shopping bag and pulled out the Valentino, held it up like evidence, turned it over in his hands. $2,800, he read off the tag. He looked at Olivia, her linen blouse, her simple jeans, her flat sandals. His lip curled. "Right. And I drive a Lamborghini." A few people in the crowd laughed. Nervous, uncomfortable laughter. The kind that comes from people who know something is wrong, but are too afraid to name it. "Call the store," Olivia said again. Her voice hadn't changed, same register, same calm. "The clerk's name is Karen Whitfield. She processed the transaction herself." As if on cue, the boutique door opened. Karen stepped out, heels clicking on the sidewalk, arms crossed tight. Holloway turned. "Ma'am, did this woman purchase that bag from your store?" Karen looked at Olivia, looked at the bag, looked at the crowd, the phones, the cruiser lights. She had a choice, a simple one. Tell the truth and this ends. Lie and it gets worse. She chose worse. "She was in the store," Karen said carefully. "But she was acting very suspicious, touching everything, looking around a lot. I wasn't sure if the transaction was legitimate." "The card cleared," Olivia said. "You handed me the receipt yourself." Karen's eyes darted to Holloway. "I just thought someone should check. You know how it is. Better safe than sorry." Better safe than sorry. 4 words that had justified every unlawful stop, every false accusation, every pair of cuffs slapped onto wrists that had done nothing wrong. Holloway nodded slowly. He had what he needed. An accusation, however thin. A witness, however dishonest. A suspect, however innocent. He turned back to Olivia. Based on the store employee's statement, I'm placing you under investigative detention. I want your badge number. You'll get it at the station. I want it now, and I want your supervisor's name. Holloway leaned in close enough that she could see the capillaries in his eyes, the coffee stain on his collar, the tiny vein pulsing at his temple. Lady, he said, you don't get to make demands. Not here. Not today. You get to shut up, turn around, and do exactly what I tell you. That's how this works for people like you. Always has, always will. The couple across the street turned away. The man with the barber's apron went back inside. The woman with the stroller shook her head and kept walking. One by one, the crowd shrank. Eyes dropped, feet shuffled. Nobody wanted to be next. Only Tyler stayed. Phone up, red dot blinking. Silent. 17 years old and already learning the cost of being the only one who doesn't look away. Olivia looked at the teenager. For half a second, something passed between them. Not a word, not a nod, just recognition. I see you seeing this. Don't stop. Then she turned around, placed her hands behind her back, and waited. The cuffs went on hard. Not the controlled procedural click of a trained officer securing a cooperative subject. Holloway ratcheted them 3 notches past snug. The steel bit into the bones of her wrists, and Olivia felt her fingers go cold almost instantly. Too tight, she said. Should have thought about that before you decided to steal. I didn't steal anything. Walk. He grabbed the chain between the cuffs and yanked her forward. She stumbled. Her sandal caught on the curb and her knee hit the concrete. A sharp crack. Skin on stone. Blood beaded on her kneecap. He didn't stop, didn't help her up. He pulled the chain again and she found her footing, standing with her back straight, blood running a thin line down her shin. Tyler's phone caught everything. The stumble, the blood, the yank. His comment section was already exploding. Where is this? Someone call the news. This is racial profiling. The view counter climbed. 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, numbers rising faster than anyone on that sidewalk could comprehend. Holloway walked Olivia to the cruiser and pressed her against the rear passenger door. The metal was sun-baked, hot enough to sting through her blouse. He placed his hand on the back of her head and shoved it down. Face the car. Don't move. She didn't. He went back to the shopping bag, picked up the Valentino again, unzipped it, turned it upside down and shook it like a trash bag. A small makeup pouch fell out, a pack of tissues, a pen, her wallet. He opened the makeup pouch, dumped the contents onto the sidewalk. Lipstick, compact mirror, a travel-size hand cream. He picked up the lipstick, read the label, and tossed it behind him. Fancy stuff for someone who rides the bus. He opened her wallet, pulled out her cards one by one, tossed each on the sidewalk like he was dealing a hand of poker. Visa, library card, insurance card, a photo of her mother. He flicked the photo onto the concrete, face down. Nothing in here that says you can afford a $2,800 bag. Olivia watched her belongings scattered across the pavement. The lipstick had cracked open. A smear of burgundy bled across the concrete like a wound. The photo of her mother, the only print she had, lay face down in gutter grime. "Those are my personal items," she said. "You have no right to search my bag without a warrant." "I don't need a warrant when I have reasonable suspicion." "You don't have reasonable suspicion. You have a phone call from a clerk who watched my card go through. Holloway dropped the bag on the ground, stepped on it, twisted his boot. The dust cover crumpled. The calfskin leather creased under his weight. He looked at her and smiled, the kind of smile that said, "What are you going to do about it?" He turned to the remaining crowd, 8, maybe 10 people. He raised his voice, projecting now, performing. "Let this be a lesson, folks," he gestured at Olivia. "This is what happens when you try to play above your level. You walk into a store you don't belong in, you pick up something you could never afford, and you think nobody's going to notice?" He shook his head. "We notice. We always notice." A woman in the crowd, elderly, white hair, clutching a pharmacy bag, whispered to the man beside her, "This isn't right." The man shushed her. "He's a cop. He knows what he's doing." No, he didn't. But nobody was willing to say it out loud. Not to his face. Not with his hand on his holster and his cruiser lights painting the street in red and blue. Kemp stood 15 feet away, directing 2 onlookers to step back. His body was doing the job, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. He had seen the receipt in the gutter. He had seen the branded shopping bag. He had seen Karen's hesitation, the way her story bent and shifted. Everything about this stop was wrong, and he knew it. And he hated himself for knowing it and doing nothing. He walked over to Holloway, kept his voice at a whisper. "Derek, the receipt is right there. Maybe we should just..." "Just what?" "Verify. Call it in. Run the card number. 2 minutes." Holloway turned his full body toward Kemp, squared up, 4 inches taller, 60 pounds heavier. "You want to verify? Fine. Here's what I see. A woman who walked into a store she had no business being in, picked up something she could never afford in 10 lifetimes, and walked out like she owned the place. The store employee called me personally. That's enough. But the receipt is irrelevant. You know how easy it is to fake a receipt? Print it at home, pull one out of a trash can, find one on the ground and claim it's yours." He stepped closer to Kemp. "My scene, my call. You got a problem? File a report. See how far that gets you." Kemp stepped back, his jaw clenched, his fists tightened at his sides. But he stepped back. Because in Ridgewood, Derek Holloway was senior, and senior officers didn't get questioned. Not on the street, not in the station. The system had taught Travis Kemp exactly one lesson in 5 years. Keep your head down, or lose it. Holloway returned to Olivia. He pulled a field notebook from his vest pocket and clicked his pen. Full name: Olivia Spencer. Address: she gave it. Employment: law enforcement. He stopped writing, looked up. His mouth twisted into something between a grin and a sneer. Law enforcement? He laughed, loud, deliberate, performed for the crowd. You? What are you, a crossing guard? Mall security? I didn't say what level. Oh, let me guess. Meter maid? Parking enforcement? Maybe TSA, the ones who check bags at the airport. He turned to the crowd. A bag checker who got her own bag checked. That's beautiful. Nobody laughed. Not one person. The joke landed on silence so thick you could feel it press against your eardrums. I'll ask one more time, Olivia said. Her voice was low, not angry, not pleading, just precise. Call the store, verify the transaction, remove these cuffs. Or what? She held his gaze. Or you will face consequences that you are not prepared for. Holloway leaned in, so close she could feel the heat of his breath on her forehead. Is that a threat? It's a promise. A promise. He straightened up, clicked his pen. Here's mine. You're going to the station. You're going to sit in a holding cell, and by the time anyone figures out what happened, I'll have filed my report, and it'll be your word against mine. Guess whose word wins in this town? He opened the cruiser's rear door. The interior smelled of vinyl and sweat and cold fast food. A wire cage separated the back seat from the front. The seat had stains she didn't want to identify. Get in. She didn't move. Get in the car. She looked at him one final time. Not with anger, not with fear, with something far more dangerous. Patience. The kind of patience that comes from a woman who has sat across the table from federal prosecutors, who has testified before grand juries, who has put men with far more power than Derek Holloway in federal prison. She ducked her head and sat in the back of the cruiser. The door slammed shut. The locks clicked. The window was smeared with fingerprints from everyone who had sat there before her. Every person Holloway had decided didn't belong. Outside, Tyler Brooks lowered his phone for the first time. His hands were trembling. The live stream had passed 200,000 viewers. The top comment, pinned by the algorithm, read, "Somebody find out who this cop is." Kemp stood by his cruiser, watching Holloway walk to the driver's seat. He pulled out his own phone, not to record, to text. One message to the only person he trusted in the department. "Sergeant Caldwell, you need to see what's happening on Elm. Holloway, it's bad." He hit send. Then he put the phone away and stared at the ground, wondering if 5 years of silence had made him an accomplice to everything he'd just watched. The cruiser pulled away from the curb. The red and blue lights cut off. Elm Avenue went quiet. On the sidewalk, Olivia's belongings were still scattered. Cards, tissues, a cracked lipstick, a photo of her mother face down in the dirt. And in the gutter, soaking in a puddle of rainwater, a receipt. Still legible, still dated today, still showing $2,800 paid in full. Nobody picked any of it up. The cruiser hadn't made it 2 blocks when the radio crackled. "Unit 19, this is dispatch." Holloway picked up the handset. "Go ahead." "Unit 19, what is the name of your detainee?" He glanced at the rearview mirror. Olivia sat behind the cage, hands cuffed behind her back, eyes forward. Calm. Still calm. "Spencer. Olivia Spencer." A pause. The kind of pause that sits in the air like the silence before a judge reads a verdict. "Unit 19, please confirm. Olivia R. Spencer?" "That's what her ID says. Why?" Another pause, longer this time. Holloway could hear someone talking in the background at dispatch, voices overlapping, a chair scraping across a floor. Then a new voice came on the radio, not the dispatcher, deeper, sharper, the voice of Captain Warren Hughes, the highest-ranking officer on shift. "Holloway, this is Captain Hughes. Pull over immediately." Holloway's foot eased off the gas. "Captain, I'm transporting a shoplifting suspect to—" "I said pull over. Now. Do not proceed to the station. Do not process this individual. Pull your vehicle to the nearest curb and wait." Holloway's hands tightened on the wheel. He pulled to the side of the road, 2 blocks from the boutique, in front of a dry cleaner's with a closed sign in the window. "Captain, I don't understand. Olivia Spencer is the sheriff-elect of Macon County. She was appointed by the governor 3 weeks ago. She assumes command at 0800 Monday morning. You have the incoming sheriff of this department handcuffed in the back of your cruiser." The radio went silent. Holloway didn't move. His right hand was still on the handset. His left hand gripped the steering wheel so hard the leather squeaked. In the rearview mirror, Olivia's expression hadn't changed. Not a flicker, not a flinch. She had known. From the first moment he told her to drop the bag, she had known exactly how this would end. She had let it play out. Every insult, every shove, every violation. Because she needed to see it. All of it. With her own eyes. Kemp's cruiser pulled up behind Holloway 30 seconds later. He stepped out, phone in hand. Sergeant Rita Caldwell was already en route. She had been 12 minutes away when she got Kemp's text. Now she was 4 minutes away, doing 70 in a 45 zone. Holloway sat frozen. The engine idled. The air conditioning hummed. Behind the cage, Olivia spoke for the first time since the car door had closed. "Officer Holloway." He didn't turn around. "Officer Holloway, I'm going to need you to look at me." Slowly, like a man turning to face a firing squad, he turned in his seat. His face had lost every shade of color. The arrogance was gone. The sneer was gone. The jaw that had been built for confrontation now hung slack, like the hinge had broken. "Uncuff me," she said. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't get the key into the lock on the first try. Or the second. On the third attempt, the cuffs clicked open. Olivia brought her wrists forward. Deep red grooves circled both, dark against her skin. She rubbed them, slowly, methodically, the way someone inspects damage they intend to document. Tires screeched outside. Caldwell's unmarked sedan skidded to a stop at an angle, blocking the lane. She was out of the car before the engine died. 52 years old, built like a cornerback, silver hair pulled tight. 26 years on the force and not 1 second of patience for what she was about to see. She looked through the cruiser window, saw Olivia in the back seat, saw the red marks on her wrists, saw the dried blood on her shin. "Holloway," Caldwell said. Her voice was quiet, the dangerous kind of quiet. "Open this door." He reached back and opened it. Olivia stepped out. She straightened her blouse, brushed the dust off her jeans, stood at her full height. Caldwell looked at her. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Rita Caldwell. I am—" Her voice cracked. She swallowed, started again. "I am deeply, deeply sorry." "Sergeant," Olivia nodded. "Thank you for coming." Then she turned to Holloway. He was standing by the driver's door, arms at his sides, mouth opening and closing without producing sound. Like a fish pulled from the water, gasping for an element that no longer existed around him. "Officer Holloway," Olivia said, "on Monday morning, I will be your commanding officer. I will be the person who signs your paycheck, approves your shifts, and decides whether you carry a badge in this county." She paused, let the words settle like stones dropped into still water. "I want your badge number, your body cam footage from today, and a complete internal affairs referral. On my desk by 0800 Monday. Do you understand?" He nodded. A small, broken nod. The nod of a man who had just realized that the woman he'd called a thieving roach, the woman whose knee he'd put on the pavement, the woman whose mother's photo he'd flicked into the dirt, that woman held his entire future in the hands he had cuffed. Somewhere behind them, on the sidewalk, Tyler Brooks stood with his phone still raised. The live stream had crossed 400,000 viewers. The top comment now read, "She's the sheriff. She's the actual sheriff." And for the first time in the video, the comment section went completely, absolutely silent. Holloway started talking the moment Caldwell turned to face him. The words came fast, tangled, falling over each other like someone trying to bail water from a sinking boat with their bare hands. "Sergeant, I was responding to a call. The store employee said, she told me the merchandise was suspicious. I followed protocol. I had reasonable suspicion based on— Stop. Caldwell raised one hand. Badge, gun, now. Sergeant, if you'll just let me explain, you have had your chance to explain. You've had 15 years of chances. Badge and gun on the hood of your cruiser, right now. Holloway's fingers went to his belt. They fumbled with the holster clip. The same clip he had snapped open so casually an hour ago to intimidate Olivia. Now his hands couldn't manage it. Kemp watched from 6 feet away. There was no satisfaction in his face, just exhaustion. The exhaustion of a man who had known this day would come and had done too little to bring it sooner. The badge came off first. Holloway set it on the hood. Then the service weapon, a Glock 19 standard issue. He placed it beside the badge with the barrel pointed away, the way he'd been trained at the academy, back when he'd believed the training mattered. You are suspended without pay, effective immediately, Caldwell said. She pulled a small notebook from her vest and wrote the time, date, and Holloway's badge number. Internal Affairs will contact you within 48 hours. Do not leave the county. Do not contact Officer Kemp. Do not contact the store employee. Do not contact Sheriff-elect Spencer. Do not speak to the media. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. I need a ride arranged for Officer Holloway, Caldwell said into her radio. He is not to drive a department vehicle. Holloway stood by the cruiser, stripped of everything that had made him feel powerful. The badge, the gun, the authority, the uniform's implicit permission to decide who belonged and who didn't. He looked smaller now. The crew cut, the squared shoulders, the jawline, all still there. But without the badge, they were just features on a man, standing on a sidewalk, with nothing left to hide behind. Caldwell turned to Kemp. Officer, I need your body cam footage uploaded to IA's server before end of shift. I also need a written statement. Everything you saw, everything you heard, everything you did and didn't do. Understood? Yes, Sergeant. Already writing it in my head. Write it on paper. Tonight. Caldwell walked back to Olivia, who was leaning against the unmarked sedan, arms folded, wrist marks darkening from red to purple. Ma'am, I'd like to drive you to the hospital to have those documented. I'll handle it, Olivia said, but I want something first. Name it. Send a unit back to Elm Avenue. My belongings are still on the sidewalk. My wallet, my cards, my makeup. She paused. And a photograph of my mother. It's face down in the gutter. I want it recovered and brought to me in an evidence bag. Caldwell's jaw tightened. Understood. One more thing. The store clerk, Karen Whitfield, she made the call that started this. I want her statement taken tonight, on the record. Caldwell dispatched a unit to Elm Avenue and radioed for a detective to meet Karen at the boutique. Within the hour, Karen Whitfield was sitting across from Detective Paul Ashford in the back office of Harlow and James, her French-tipped nails gripping a paper cup of water. I just called because she looked out of place, Karen said. I didn't say she stole anything. Ma'am, the call log shows you reported a suspected theft. Officer Holloway's radio transcript confirms the language, and there are currently over 500,000 people watching a video that shows your exact words to the officer on scene. Karen's face went white. 500,000? And climbing. She asked for a lawyer. She didn't get one that night, but she did get a phone call from the owner of Harlow and James, who had seen the video on his daughter's phone during dinner. Don't come in Monday, he said. Don't come in ever. The line went dead. Karen sat in the back office alone, staring at the racks of silk and cashmere and leather, merchandise she had spent 6 years guarding from people she had decided, on sight, didn't deserve to touch. Outside on Elm Avenue, a patrol officer knelt beside the gutter. He picked up the photograph of Olivia's mother with gloved hands, slid it into a clear evidence bag, and sealed it. The woman in the photo was smiling, a wide, warm, unguarded smile. the same smile Olivia had given Holloway when her knees were on the pavement and his cuffs were on her wrists. Monday morning arrived the way all reckonings do, quietly, on schedule, indifferent to the people it was about to change. Olivia Spencer stood at the podium in the Macon County Courthouse at 8 sharp. Navy suit, gold badge pinned above her heart. The bruises on her wrists hidden under long sleeves. The scrape on her knee, dressed and bandaged beneath pressed trousers. Every wound covered, none forgotten. The room was packed. County commissioners in the front row. Officers from every precinct lining the walls. Press from 3 networks and 11 local outlets crammed into the back. Tyler Brooks stood in the corner, phone in hand, streaming to what was now 1.2 million followers. He had not slept since Saturday. The oath was standard. The applause was not. It came in waves, starting from the public gallery, rolling forward through the press section, catching even a few of the officers who had served under the old regime. Some clapped because they believed. Some clapped because they were afraid not to. Olivia's inaugural address lasted 4 minutes. She did not mention Holloway by name. She did not reference the video. She did not describe what had happened on Elm Avenue. She didn't need to. Every person in that room had already seen it. What she said instead was this: accountability is not a punishment. It is a promise. A promise that the people who wear this badge will be held to the same standard as the people they serve. Starting today, that promise is no longer optional. By Tuesday, Internal Affairs had opened a formal investigation into Derek Holloway. But the investigation didn't stop with Saturday. It went backward. 14 prior complaints, every one of them dismissed, buried, or reclassified as resolved with no action. IA pulled the original files, read the original statements, interviewed the original complainants. 7 of them were willing to testify. 3 of them cried when they were told that someone was finally listening. One of them, a 61-year-old retired postal worker named Eleanor Hayes, had been pulled over by Holloway in 2019 for a broken taillight that wasn't broken. He made her stand in the rain for 40 minutes while he searched her car. Found nothing, wrote no ticket, drove away without a word. She filed a complaint the next morning. It was closed in 3 days. Unsubstantiated. She never filed another one. The pattern was systematic. Over 12 years, Holloway had conducted 231 traffic stops on black drivers in a jurisdiction where black residents made up 11% of the population. His stop rate for black drivers was 4 times the department average. His use of force reports showed a consistent escalation pattern: verbal commands, physical contact, cuffs, and weapon drawn within the first 90 seconds of every encounter. No de-escalation. No attempt to verify before acting. The former sheriff, Gerald Pratt, retired 8 months earlier, was called before the county commission. Pratt sat in the witness chair in a rumpled blazer and gave the answer that every institutional failure eventually produces. I trusted my officers to do their jobs. You trusted Officer Holloway? The commission chair asked. He was effective. Effective at what exactly? Pratt didn't answer. The data answered for him. The FBI opened a parallel investigation under Title 18, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under Color of Law. Federal agents reviewed Tyler's video, Kemp's body cam footage, Caldwell's incident report, Karen Whitfield's recorded statement, and the dispatch audio. They subpoenaed Holloway's personnel file, phone records, and personal text messages. In those texts, sent to 3 different officers over 4 years, Holloway had written things that no courtroom could unhear. Slurs, jokes about suspects. A message sent the night before his shift. Heading in tomorrow, let's see which ones try to act like they belong today. The grand jury indicted in 11 days. 1 count of deprivation of civil rights under color of law. 1 count of filing a false police report. 1 count of evidence tampering for crumpling and discarding the receipt he knew was legitimate. The trial lasted 6 days. The prosecution played Tyler's video 3 times, normal speed, half speed, and audio isolated so the jury could hear every word without ambient noise. "You disgusting, thieving roach." 12 jurors heard it in surround sound. The gallery was packed. Eleanor Hayes sat in the 3rd row, hands folded in her lap, watching the man who had left her standing in the rain 5 years ago finally sit in the chair he deserved. Holloway's attorney argued he was responding to a legitimate call, that his actions fell within departmental guidelines, that the escalation was professional judgment. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and 14 minutes. Guilty on all 3 counts. When the verdict was read, Holloway's head dropped. His chin hit his chest. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, and Holloway flinched. The same involuntary jerk he had caused in dozens of people he had stopped, grabbed, and cuffed without cause. For the first time in his career, Derek Holloway understood what it felt like to have someone else's hand decide what happens to your body. Eleanor Hayes did not clap. She did not cry. She closed her eyes, exhaled once, and nodded. 5 years of silence, answered in 3 hours. The sentencing hearing came 2 weeks later. Holloway stood when the judge addressed him. His hands trembled, the same hands that had yanked the chain on Olivia's cuffs, flicked her mother's photograph into the gutter, crumpled a receipt he refused to read. "Mr. Holloway," the judge said, "you were entrusted with the authority to protect. Instead, you weaponized it. This court sentences you to 24 months in federal custody, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You are permanently barred from serving in any law enforcement capacity in the United States." Karen Whitfield settled Olivia's civil lawsuit for an undisclosed amount. She was never seen at Harlow and James again. The boutique's owner issued a public apology, donated $50,000 to the county's civilian oversight fund, and implemented mandatory bias training for all staff. 3 other officers, names that had appeared in Holloway's text messages, were placed on administrative leave. 2 resigned. The 3rd was terminated for cause. Olivia signed the termination order herself. Same desk, same badge, same pen. The system that had protected Derek Holloway for 12 years had taken exactly 12 days to dismantle him. 6 months later, Macon County looked like the same place. Same magnolia trees lining the main streets. Same flags hanging from the same awnings. Same sun hitting the same sidewalks at the same angle every afternoon. But beneath the surface, everything had shifted. Civilian complaints against the department dropped 62% in the first quarter under Olivia's command. Not because people stopped having problems, because officers started solving them before they became complaints. De-escalation training, once a 4-hour checkbox in the annual cycle, became a 40-hour certification mandatory for every officer every year, no exceptions. Olivia created the Office of Accountability, a civilian oversight board with subpoena power, independent investigators, and a direct line to the county prosecutor. The board's first chair was a retired federal judge. Its first hire was an analyst who had spent a decade tracking use of force data for the Department of Justice. Its first action was reopening every complaint filed against the department in the last 10 years. 37 cases, 22 sustained findings, 9 officers disciplined, 3 terminated, 1 referred for federal prosecution. The numbers mattered, but the faces behind them mattered more. Eleanor Hayes received a formal letter of apology from the department, signed by Olivia personally. It arrived on a Tuesday morning in a plain white envelope, with no fanfare and no press release. Eleanor read it at her kitchen table, set it down beside her coffee, and called her daughter. "Someone finally said sorry," she said. "And I think they meant it." Travis Kemp was promoted to sergeant. Not as a reward for Saturday. Olivia made that clear. But because in the months that followed, Kemp became the officer he should have been from the start. He led the department's new early intervention program, designed to flag officers showing patterns of escalation before those patterns became incidents. He volunteered for every community meeting, every ride-along with civilian observers, every uncomfortable conversation that the old department had spent decades avoiding. When a reporter asked him why he had waited so long to speak up, Kemp didn't make excuses. "I was a coward," he said. "I saw what was happening, and I chose my career over the right thing. I don't get credit for finally doing what I should have done from day one." Tyler Brooks graduated from Ridgewood High that spring. His livestream channel had grown to 2.4 million subscribers. College recruiters contacted him. Media companies offered internships. He turned most of them down. Instead, he accepted Olivia's offer to serve as the department's first civilian youth liaison, a part-time role that put him in the room during policy discussions, community forums, and officer evaluations. "I'm not doing this because I want to be famous," Tyler told a local news crew on his first day. "I'm doing this because I was the only one who didn't put his phone down, and I'm tired of being the only one." Derek Holloway served his sentence at a federal facility in southern Georgia. 14 months into his 24-month term, he received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. "You pulled me over on Route 9 in 2021. You called me a name I won't repeat. You let me go without a ticket because you said I wasn't worth the paperwork. I want you to know that I remember your face, and I want you to know that I'm okay. Not because of you, in spite of you." It was unsigned. Holloway read it twice, folded it, and put it in the drawer beside his bunk. He never showed it to anyone. On a Saturday morning, exactly 6 months after the day that changed everything, Olivia drove through Ridgewood on her routine patrol. She slowed as she passed Elm Avenue. The boutique was still there. New staff, new owner. A sign in the window read, "Everyone is welcome." She parked, walked inside, browsed for 10 minutes. A young clerk approached her with a smile. "Can I help you find anything, ma'am?" "No," Olivia said, "just looking." She walked out, empty-handed. She didn't need to buy anything. She had already paid the highest price this store would ever charge. And she had the receipt to prove it. What would you have done if you were standing in that crowd? Would you have been one of the people who walked away? Or would you have been the one who kept recording? Drop your answer in the comments. If this story made you feel something, hit that share button. Someone in your circle needs to hear this. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because stories like this one, they're not over, not even close. Hashtag Justice for Olivia. Hashtag She Bought the Bag. Hashtag New Sheriff in Town.
You know what craziest part is? Olivia could have ended it in 5 seconds. One flash of the badge. Done. But she didn't. And I think that choice says everything. See, you live in a world that tells you if someone disrespects you, match their energy, get loud, get even. But Olivia showed us something different. She understood that your dignity is not something anyone can take from you. Not a badge, not handcuffed, not a man calling you a roach on the public sidewalk. And patience isn't about being passive. It's about knowing that the truth doesn't need you to scream for it. It needs time. 12 years of complaints went ignored. One afternoon of silence tore the whole thing down. But here's where it gets personal. Most of us won't be Olivia, but every single one of us will be that crowd one day, watching something wrong happen right in front of us. And in that moment, If got two choices, look away or be tired. 17 years old, hands shaking, but he stayed. So, I got to ask you, when your moment comes, what are you gonna do? Tell me in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe to my channel. Because their conversations, they are far from over. Stay loud, stay watching.